Let us now study and understand the stages of industry life cycle. So, for any industry, the first phase is of the birth phase. And from the birth phase, the next is growth phase. From the growth phase, it moves to the shakeout phase. And from the shakeout phase, it moves to the mature phase. And after the mature phase, the logical step next is it reaches into the decline phase. So basically, these are the five stages in the life of any industry uh, how will be the revenues and profit and cash during these five phases of industry life cycle. So as we can understand, during the startup phase, the revenues are going to start, and during the startup phase we will see, because expenses are going to be more than the income that we would generate, and therefore during the startup phase company will be earning losses. And obviously, since the company will be earning losses during the startup phase, the valuations of that company are likely to be on the lower side, or on the negative side. And same is the case with the cash. So any startup will be burning cash during the startup phase, and so also during the growth phase. And as a result of that, from the startup phase to the growth phase, the startup or the company or the industry is going to be burning the cash, and that means it is going to be negative in cash. And that is the reason why these startups require a lot of funding during the initial periods. From the growth phase, it would enter into the shakeout phase, and that is where the companies in that industry start growing themselves, and not only start growing themselves in terms of revenue, but also in terms of the profit and the cash. And so it is after the growth phase, the startups would start. After the growth phase, the industry or the companies that in that industry will start earning profit and as well as cash. So it is somewhere around the maturity phase, you reach to a point where the cash of the company is increasing and the profit of the company are decreasing. And the reason as to why the cash of the company is increasing and the profit are decreasing, and that is because of the depreciation, and that is because of the depreciation. And at the same time, the revenues also will start falling in the maturity phase. So this is how we can see movement in the revenue and cash and the profit during the industry life cycle for different companies in that industry. And I'm sure our role as the valuation professional is to come to an understanding, come to a judgment as to how the valuations of a company will be impacted by different stages in the industry life cycle. And I'm sure it is quite obvious, during the startup phase, the valuations are going to be low. During the growth phase, the valuations are going to be higher than the startup phase, but they would still be low. They will not be very attractive. It's during the shakeout phase when you will have some players getting out and some player getting stabilized. So it is during the startup phase that the valuation will start strengthening for the companies which are in that particular industry. During the maturity phase, the valuation will reach to the peak, and after somewhere during the middle of the maturity phase, the valuations will start declining. And why will the valuations start declining? Because the revenues will start declining, and the profit will start declining, cash also will start declining. And since the cash is declining, we understand it very well, ultimately value of a company is linked with the cash that it generates. So if the cash is declining, so will happen with the valuations of that company. And this is what we need to understand and remember for the exam, and also for the purpose of doing real life valuations.